This is Trent Emenecker. Sorry I missed your call. Please leave your name and number. Thanks. Bye-bye.
1-1.
The old double ones. Pretty interesting. Who would have thought that we would get this far? 11.
That's amazing.
Which is one more than last week. Last week was 10. This is 11. So this is really quite something. Hello, Alex.
Hi, Dad.
And everyone else out there with the wherewithal to listen into the double digits. I know we celebrated 10, but shouldn't we really celebrate each and every chance we get to talk to one another?
I think we should celebrate 10 because that was by far our most listened to episode. So that was really exciting. We're really picking up steam here by a lot.
And that would seem to make sense because you have to have some sort of breakthrough. No store opens and just boom, or no band or artist becomes famous after their first. It usually takes some time.
Yes.
So that we are well within the scope of greatness. We're headed that way. So it's number 11. This is the Please Don't Call Me podcast. Alex wants to talk to her father.
Who doesn't take phone calls.
Doesn't want to answer the phone because it's scary. And so we do this podcast together once a week.
A lot of my students have started watching the podcast. So hi guys, if you're listening. But I was
homework. Can you make it so that Mrs. Gonzalez doesn't have to come after you to get your homework?
They're pretty good. They're pretty good. But
let's keep it up.
Yeah, so them and their parents have been listening. But I was telling them, I think, the day after or right after we recorded our last episode, and we were talking about how like red pen like intimidates children and is oppressive and aggressive. Well, the next day, the day that episode released, I asked all my kids to get out their red pen because we had to grade something. And I was like, I told them all about that. I was like, does anyone feel like victimized by this red ink? And they're like, yes, Mrs. G, I think I'm going to cry. It was funny. They were joking about it. And so I was telling them about the podcast and trying to explain the concept because they're like, what's the name of it? And I said, Please Don't Call Me. And they're like, oh, okay. I'm like, well, my dad doesn't talk on the phone. So my dad and I really didn't talk on the phone. So now we talk on our podcast every week instead. And they all looked at me like, your dad must be a really mean person. I know. I was like, I had to explain. I was like, he has telephonophobia. It's okay. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah. I don't want to start all over, but small talk on the phone is really quite difficult. That's all.
It is.
So, you know what I was thinking about ink? You know what's underrated? Way underrated?
What?
Is ink that smells. Remember when they used to have, or do they still have smelly ink? So
probably.
If you had red ink, you'd have strawberries. If you had purple ink, grape. Blue ink,
blue raspberry.
Blue ice cream, blue raspberry. The only problem is with that is you have to wait for the ink to dry before you put your nose up against it, because you'll walk around
with your words on your nose.
On the edge of your nose.
That's funny.
I'm not going to say if that's happened to me or not, but it's quite possible. So smelly ink is very underrated, but wait till it dries before you smell it.
I like your new glasses, by the way. They look great.
Oh, and I should say, hey everyone, it's me, Trent. I'm not trying to fool you with this disguise, but I'm wearing glasses. I was going for the welder / hip musician look.
Welder.
So they're cut. The cut is like a welder, but they're clear. I mean, they're really clear. Oh, and the athlete, because they're made by Nike. Can you see on the side there?
I can't.
So they're pretty hip. I got some new glasses. The other ones I would wear them, and within about 3 minutes of wearing them, they would slide down my nose. I got them at a great store. I got them at Costco. We've talked about Costco. I got them there, but they only have so many, and I needed glasses so desperately. I just picked ones that I thought fit. They were way too big for my head, and they just slid all over. These fit like a glove, so I love them.
I'm so glad to hear that.
And I look terrific.
You do.
With my clear glasses.
So what have you been up to this weekend?
Oh, this weekend was my painting weekend. I replaced some boards on the fence,
Oh, can
and
you,
they've had to dry.
real quick, can you
Go ahead.
follow up on your electrical situation? Because you left our last podcast saying you had to work on an electrical situation. I never lost power here in Athens, so that is good news. But
You
we
you
were
didn't
worried about the grid.
you didn't lose power, but I did not gain power. So I switched out. So it's a three-way. Those are difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Two switches could turn on one
Uh,
grouping of light. So I first started with the switch that I thought was broken. I went okay, not I am not exaggerating, 5 trips to Home Depot just to get my lights to work. So I went and bought one switch, switched it out, nothing happened. There was power going to the lights, but the lights wouldn't turn on using that little thing that'll tell you it's like a stud finder, but for
mm-hmm.
electricity. So I went back to Home Depot, bought the other switch, came home, put it in, did not work. Very frustrating. So then I went to Home Depot and I thought, oh, I'm just going to change out all the lights. So I bought the 4-inch lights, which was a mistake because we currently own the 6-inch lights. So I took the 4-inch back, bought the 6-inch, brought them in. That didn't work. I went back one more time. What was it for? Oh, I broke the faceplate in the meantime. So, so in the meantime, while I was trying to fix the real problem, I made another problem, which is that is something I can do very well. And then I gave up. I think that was 4, maybe not 4. Oh, and then I had to return everything that
Mm.
I didn't need. So yeah, 5 trips to Home Depot and didn't fix it. So my neighbor Jeff said, "Hey," I asked him. He was out there power washing on a Sunday afternoon, which could be a topic all in of itself. I mean, really power washing, some great power, really loud. But I went over there and said, "Hey, do you have?" He does construction. I said, "You got a trustworthy electrician?" The guy came in and fixed it. So I didn't do. I usually I can handle household electrical
Yeah, I
work,
was gonna
but
say you usually
not
do
not
good.
in this case. I couldn't. There was something to do with the wiring. I don't know what it was. I couldn't figure it out. So
Mm.
anyway, that was that. Now this weekend, man, I am very industrialist.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, that's not the right word. I get a lot done. That's the word I was looking
You're a
for.
fix it guy.
Painted my fence. So we replaced a bunch of wood on our fence, and it had to dry. I did that maybe a month or two ago. It's been drying in the sun, and then it was ready to paint. So I painted this week, which, as you know, is got to be my favorite pastime slash activity slash job.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's much more that I enjoy than a good paint job, and so that's what I did, and it looks really good.
Yeah, you do a
Really,
great
so
job.
yeah, thank
I
you.
had the privilege of painting with you one summer. Do you remember
That's
that?
right. Yes, I
I think
do.
it
It
was
was,
summer of 2016. Yeah.
and it was a full summer.
It
You
was a
put in,
busy, yeah. I mean, that was my only job that summer. I had just come back from a year of college in Pensacola
hmm
and came back up, and me and Addison did it with you.
yep,
Every day we'd get up 5:30 because we had to
yep.
go grab all the equipment from the office and then go to our site, and
hmm
we'd go till almost sometimes till it was dark. It would depend on the job. But I don't know if you remember, we were also in Joseph and the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat that summer. All
We
three of
looked
us.
like every day we looked like we were wearing a Technicolor Dreamcoat
Yeah,
because
we'd be covered in
we
paint and go straight to
covered in paint.
rehearsal at night. There's a lot of pictures of me like laying on the ground asleep
hmm
at rehearsal, and I just told everyone, just wake me up when it's my scene and I'll get up and do my thing, and then I'd lay back down and fall asleep. But we would go covered in paint. Like we didn't have time to
Yep.
shower or change. Um, yeah, that was a special summer. I learned a lot that summer. That's the probably the most manual labor job I've ever
Yep.
had and probably will ever have. So it was good. I think all of us kids have done it at one point or another. Addison and
All four
I.
have been on the paint site. That's exactly right. It's probably the greatest. Well, it's a pretty safe job. it uh, it is one of those jobs that are people would say, "Oh, it's not very technical." They just put no,
Mm-hmm.
no, no. It is a very technical job. You to be good at it, to be worthy of the various people that I've painted with, it is not an easy job, and you have to be good at prep and paint.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just paint. You don't. Oh boy, I am getting
Oh
passionate.
no.
You don't just show up and just start putting paint on the wall. Of course, unless your name's Duke Doucette. We'll talk about him in a minute. He was famous for not showing up until all the prep was done.
Mm.
He'd call and say, "Hey," because he had to work at the school. "Hey, you guys, how's it going over there?" And we're like, "Oh, we're still scraping." "Oh, okay. Well, I got a few more calls I've got to make." And then he'd wait until it was paint time, and then he'd show up. But it's preparation and it's painting, and you've got to make sure the surface is prepared, or the best paint in the world isn't going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what kind of paint you put on there, whether it's got one name or two. You can't paint if you don't do great preparation. I'm sorry if I sound overly passionate about this, but that's the way it's got to be. I want people to understand the goodness of painting. So I think let's talk about a little bit of painting
Yeah.
today, Alex, shall we?
Yeah. I mean, I remember there's one job from that summer that really sticks out in my mind in like a traumatic way. And it was the old farmhouse that we had to completely scrape. Like
A legit full scrape job.
yeah, we like literally had to scrape the paint off the entire house and then paint it. And that nearly broke me. Like that's the one that I still think about sometimes. And I'm like, did we ever finish it? I don't remember finishing it. I'm just like, is someone still there scraping today? I don't know.
You blacked out.
I did.
You just don't remember. Typically, you should paint your house every 7 years, on average. Good paint, if it was done well, about every 7 years, and it would take you a day or two then, depending on the house size. But it'd take you a couple days. 1 day of preparation. Let's say 3 days. 1 day of prep, 1 day of painting the big stuff, and then the third day to do windows and such.
Mm-hmm.
This house probably hadn't been painted in 50 years.
Yeah, you were worried about lead paint. Like that's how old it had been that you're like, oh, don't breathe it in. It might be lead paint that we're scraping.
The bill on that one was massive because we spent, in fact, we brought guys in to help us.
There were people that started on that job, got fired on that job. Like
because
their short-lived painting career did not even complete the job. I remember that.
They couldn't do it. So yeah, you stuck with it. But an easy house, a good house is so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
You show up, you power wash, you clean it, you scrape it if necessary, but good houses you don't have to. Then, that takes a day or two. Then you come back and you start painting. Somebody on a roller, two people on brushes. It really is. To paint a house is something that I think every kid should do because it is technical. Details are important, but you can learn it quickly.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so. The learning curve is very easy. You can figure it out. Here's how you hold the brush. Here's how you cut in a straight line. You learn the lingo very quickly. So it's a great thing. That was really my first job as a teacher. It's a great job if you're a teacher because you, in the Midwest anyway, you would teach throughout the school year. School would end, and I'm not kidding you, the next day we were on the paint site. And when I say we, this is my Mount Rushmore of painting. So I was brought into the paint universe by other teachers. And it was my first year of teaching, and they said, "Hey, Trout," that's right. I picked up my nickname Trout literally on the paint site because I used to talk about fishing too much and annoyed them. So a nice way to get them to say shut up was to start calling me Trout. So they said, "Hey, Trout, you want to paint with us this summer?" I'm like, "Sure," because I had heard, you can make good money, so on and so forth. So that first summer, I was with Mr. Freiheit, Jan Freiheit, who was my middle school basketball coach, taught me at least 3 or 4 different subjects in middle school and high school. Mr. Doucette, who was our Spanish teacher, taught history, but was also like an assistant principal. Mr. Petra, and I still call him Mr. Freiheit, Mr. Doucette, Mr. Petra, even though I'm an adult. Mr. Petra taught me in science. He tried to get me through chemistry. That'd probably be the hardest thing he ever did. But he was on the paint site. And then there was a couple other guys that would come and go. Mr. Hayton started with us. He was hilarious. Oh, my word. We had such a good time. And then Spike Goodrich, who was actually my age, but joined the paint sites earlier than me. But there was about 7 or 8 throughout my years. And we're talking years, 10 years, a long time. Did this a long time with them, where some guys would come and go, but we were pretty much the core of the paint crew until you guys were old enough and they were gracious enough to let you, Alex, onto the paint site and Addison onto the paint site. And then
It was a real risk.
Well, yeah, you get yelled at. You can get dressed down in a hurry. It was called Fry Set. Mr. Fryheit, Mr. Doucette, they joined and they called themselves Fry Set for many years. And then they retired or, kind of did some other summer things. They kept painting, but not full time with us. So then we became, Mr. Petra started his own company and it was called Mr. P's Prep and Paint.
Yep.
We've had more laughs over Mr. P's Prep and Paint. I just think that's the greatest title ever. And they all had different skills. I did too. And we blended together. I've never been a part of a better team. I'm talking sports, music. We could show up at a paint site, not even have to talk to one another. Somebody plugged the radio in, and we would just go to our spots and start. We all knew I was usually high trim because I was the youngest. I didn't have kids yet. So if I fell off a ladder, who cares? Yeah, no big deal. Trout, get up there and paint that. Yeah. Or Trout, get up there and kill those wasps. And I'd have to go up and kill all the wasps. But depending on your age, that sort of seniority, you got different jobs. I barely ever got to roll. I mean, I probably went 4 or 5 years just using a 3-inch brush. So there's the middle ground. There's the 3-inch brush. Anybody can use that. Like when you started, Alex, you got started on a 3-inch brush. That means you're cutting in, but it's not detail work. It's got to be good, but it's more.
Can you explain what cutting in for what that is for those who?
So any corners, above windows, around windows, down low on the
like
ground.
all the edges,
So
basically.
All the edging. There's a lot of crawling on the ground. Yeah. If you're inside, cutting low is great. You're just laying on the floor. If you're outside, you're rolling around shrubs and
grass
snakes are crawling up your bridges. Yeah, grass is driving you crazy. So 3 inches middle of the road. Then there's 2-inch. 2-inch would be Mr. Doucette, Mr. Petra. Those were high-level guys who could cut in. They're working around the windows. And then there's the roller. He's really the job foreman because he moves around the house a lot faster, and he can start and stop. You get to an edge of a corner, you kind of stop. So, and he's always following. So he would yell at me, "Who in the world cut this? Trout, was this you?" And then I'd have to come back and fix it because I didn't cut it far enough away so he could roll it or there wasn't enough paint. And you could get yelled at for things, not having the right tools. You learn this. What tools are necessary? Like before you even start painting in the morning, what tools do you need, Alex? Do you remember? Let's review, shall we?
Okay, so I know I needed my brush, and we had these little buckets that you could had a handle, kind of. So and
we call it a bucket. It's not a paint can. You got a bucket to paint in today?
A bucket. You had to have a rag,
Got to have a rag.
Or if you're Addison, you needed 4.
Depending on your skill level, you need more.
Which I shouldn't.
Rags, but you better have a rag.
I know she's a better cutter than me, so I'm not. She just is messier, but she was a better cutter than me. I needed my audiobook.
Well,
I always had an audiobook in. I really got into audiobooks. That was
until the very end. When it was Fry Set, you couldn't wear headphones.
Oh, really? Back before my time?
We had one radio plugged in, and we were expected to all listen to the radio. And, of course, Mr. Fryheit got to pick what we listened to. It was usually in the mornings. It was Bible programs. So it'd start like Dr. James Kennedy, then James Dobson, then Chuck Smith. You'd listen to all these pastors. And then around noon, Paul Harvey would come on. You'd listen to that. And then prayerfully, a ball game would come on in the afternoon, either the Cubs or the Brewers. But you didn't get to wear headphones. But later in, headphones became allowed. We relaxed the rules a little bit.
Yeah. What other equipment am I missing?
So you said brush, rag. There's other things you needed.
The bucket. Oh, a scraper.
Got to have a scraper. Because sometimes when you come back after you've cleaned it, it may
You
produce
still
more
missed a spot. Yeah.
need for scraping. Right.
Yeah.
So that's about it. Those are the must haves. And then somebody had to have a caulk gun with them. We would, man, caulking is a very vital part of painting.
Yeah. I
But
was not interested with
usually you
that.
had to be an upper level cut in guy to be allowed to caulk. You didn't not just anybody got to do that. So yeah, you were good at it. All four of you had different skills. I'd say the messiest was Addison. She'd just get lost in space and get a little messy. But Tyler is the only one to dump a gallon of paint. And I mean, he dumped a whole gallon of paint. Thankfully, most of it landed on the tarps. Tarping is vital.
Yeah.
And Tyler learned that. Most of it fell on the tarp, but he wasted a whole gallon.
Was this inside or outside?
Outside.
Oh, okay.
Thank goodness. Kicked it over, turned around, kicked it, and there it went all over. So, but I've had faux pas. One of my biggest mistakes, we were at another farmhouse, very similar to the one you and I worked on. We were at a farmhouse, and it had storm windows. That's how old. Nobody has storm windows anymore, but this had storm windows. So in the winter, you'd put the windows on. You could take them off in the spring, so you could open the windows and let air flow in and out. So first of all, it was impossible getting storm windows off. We took them off, and this was early in my career. Mr. Freiheit said, just go set them anywhere. Well, I thought go set them anywhere meant set them anywhere. So I took them out into the yard and laid them down because I thought if I lay them down, they can't break. They won't break. And they were glass windows, glass wood frames. I laid them on the grass right next to each other and left them there. Mr. Freiheit must have been he was on the other side of the house, probably cleaning, and I brought the windows around and put them in the backyard or whatever. So left them there. They were there pretty much all day. We stopped to have lunch, and we go back into the backyard to have lunch, and he lost his mind. And I could not understand why.
Yeah.
Why are you so mad at me? He was just yelling at me. Oh, he was so mad. Trout, what are you doing? Why would you put these windows?
I would have done the same thing. I really need to know what you did wrong. Because I'm like, I don't know what's wrong here.
It creates a lot of heat. So the sun hitting the glass
killed the grass,
creates heat. So when we lifted up the windows, it killed perfect squares or rectangles, whatever. Perfect replicas of the window was on the grass.
Oh my
And
word.
it was there. He said, that's it. It's going to be here all year long. And he's right. I'm sure they had to stare at that for the next 3 to 4 months until all the grass died and it came back next spring.
You're not the only one that would have made that mistake because I would have done the same thing. So
I didn't know you couldn't do that, but man, did I learn my lesson. All it takes is one mistake to learn your lesson, and I sure did that. So the painting is a great job. Every kid should learn.
I learned a lot. That was a good summer for me. I look back on that as like a good summer job. Could I have done it any more than that summer? Probably not. But that was a good summer job for me. It was good.
It's a great job after teaching. You're stuck inside. You're teaching, thinking every day, trying to keep, 25 people engaged. When you go paint, it's just you. You just, you get your marching orders and you just go paint.
It's almost mindless. I'm not going to say it's mindless because it takes skill.
Once you get good at it.
Yeah, but it's like you really don't have to think super hard. Like
you just it's a fun thing. So it was, and I had the greatest. They all taught me as a little kid, and then to get the honor of being, I felt like I was getting princified. No, what's that called? Knighted. I felt like they took a paint roller and they knighted me, and they said, "We welcome you into the brotherhood."
That is a big deal.
Well, it's very much like a fellowship.
I wonder if they were like watching.
Rings. It was the fellowship of the painters.
Yeah, all those years they're like watching who will be our young Padawan.
Oh, absolutely.
And you rose up above the rest.
That's right. They saw my steady hand at the free throw line or whatever. They sure didn't look at my writing because my writing was awful, but I am good at cutting in. And you can brag when you talk about your painting. I am excellent at cutting in. You need a straight line against the ceiling.
You're the fastest painter. You're just great at it. Everyone in our family, when we buy a house, I'm like, okay, I just got to have my dad come paint it. I'll have it done in like 2 days.
I like moving just so I can paint a new house.
Yeah.
That's why we move. We've moved quite a bit, and it's really just so I can have a new, other guys use canvas and oils, not me. Just give me a good latex and a clean wall, and I'm ready to go to work.
So my students that
So
are listening, if you someday maybe want to paint with me, I'm watching you. And I'm going to see who has
there
what
you
it would
go.
take.
Who's got the skill?
Yeah, I'm
It
watching.
takes patience. You got to have a sense of humor. You got to be able to be. That's definitely part of it. Man, would they razz me for making mistakes? I'd get all the way to the top of the ladder and not have my scraper or whatever. So you'd be standing up there painting, and Mr. Fry was the best at this. He'd go, Trout, you got your scraper? And he knew I wouldn't because it was laying on the ground at the foot of the ladder. And just as he'd say it, he'd throw it. So it would be like, Trout, you got your scraper? Incoming. And you'd turn and look, and there's your scraper coming
Oh
right
my
up at your
gosh.
face. Or if you didn't have your rag or whatever, he'd come by and just shake your ladder. And oh my
Well,
word.
and I know how you feel about
die.
ladders.
Well, I had to lie. Really, to get into the group, I lied because they're like, are you okay with heights? I'm like, absolutely, because I wanted this job. I wanted to make money. Mom and I were newly married. And so I wanted to make some money, and I knew they made good money. So they said, well, we're looking for somebody, but you got to be willing to go up high. The young guys go up, and you got to do this work. Like, no problem until the first day. And I really saw how high. I mean, we did a barn once,
Oof.
and you were up against the barn, but the overhang of the barn was probably 3 or 4 feet behind you. So you'd have to get to the tippy top of the ladder, put your hand on the top rung, reach back over your head to cut in or to that barn we sprayed. We never sprayed, not very often, but that barn we did. And they would make me go up there. And I mean, I was scared to death, but I think I eventually let on to it. But I know those first few weeks, if I would have said, no, I can't go up there, I'm scared, I would have not have been allowed. They would have gotten somebody else who could do it. So I overcame my fear.
Do you remember the job that me and Addison did downtown Rockford? It was like a storefront, and
That had to be 40 feet in the air.
It was probably, you were on, what are those things called? The like scaffold, but that
The scissors lift.
Yeah, that like lifts up like with a motor.
Yeah.
We had to like rent it.
Yep.
And you would go up, and Addison and I were just supposed to stand at the bottom and make sure like a car didn't come and like hit it or whatever, because we're like right off the sidewalk. And I mean, if you've ever been downtown Rockford, we saw and heard a lot of things. And people are walking by
super narrow,
talking to us, and just random people coming in talking to us, and we're just standing there, and you're 40 feet up in the air. So we're like, if anything happens to us, it's going to take Dad a while to get down here and help us. That was probably the scariest job that I remember, but not so much because of the height. I'm sure the height was a lot for you. I didn't have to go up in the lift. So
I've never been that high. And being right next, like it had it wasn't a scissors lift. It was one of those a boom lift, I think they call it. Anyway, you had to get far enough away from the building so that you could turn it and face the building. So I had 2 of the wheels into the street.
Yeah.
If somebody would have hit that with their car, a city bus, it would have just, pew, it would have just shot me right off. My feet are sweating right
Mine
now.
are too.
Thinking about it, remembering being up there, that was scary. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure I painted that very well. I mean, I would go up there and just slather paint on and quick come down. Because we did the high stuff first and then worked our way down, and I fixed all my drips and stuff. Yeah, that was probably the scariest job. That barn was probably the first, and then that on 7th Street in downtown Rockford.
That was scary.
Ooh, that was scary, but I love painting, and so I painted my fence this weekend, all on the ground. Didn't even have to use a ladder.
Oh, good.
So much safer. And I missed having you guys paint. In fact, Addison loves it when I paint. I'll text her and go, could have used you on the job site today, because
she's very proud of her cutting skills. She truly, she probably enjoyed it. Her and Tyler probably enjoyed it the most out of all of us. But
I love painting.
Well, today, the day we are recording, we're a little later recording than we normally are. It is Groundhog Day.
Whoa.
I would not have
That,
known that if
that
someone had not texted me and
well,
said
because
Happy Groundhog
you're
Day.
in the South and I'm South,
Yeah.
and who cares? Groundhog's Day does not matter. Today is glorious
Yeah,
outside
we've
where I
had
live.
beautiful weather here, so but I feel like we should talk
But we
about
should
it.
talk about it because it affects the upper half of the 48.
Yes. So a little history before we talk about what Punxsutawney Phil, I think I'm saying that right.
Yeah,
Punxsutawney
you're right.
Phil saw or did not see today. So I don't think I knew this. It's always on February 2nd. I don't know
Yes,
why I
that I
thought
knew.
it was like
The
first
first
Monday.
Monday of
Yeah,
February.
yeah, that's what I thought.
No, February
So
2nd.
do you want to guess what country it's originally from? Because I always thought this was an American tradition.
Sure, I can tell. I think I know by the way they're dressed. They're wearing. It's got to be upper European. My guess would be
It
Germany.
is Germany. Yeah.
All right.
So it was brought over.
Ding. I got
It's
that.
funny. We've talked about a lot of stuff that Germany, I mean, they brought the Christmas tree. What else did we say they brought? We talked about something
I don't
else.
know.
They're just
Yeah,
more influenced than we
me.
thought. Yes,
I'm
they
of
brought
German
us.
heritage.
So it's traced back to ancient Celtic festivals. And it had to do, it was the midpoint between winter solstice and the spring equinox, which I can't tell you when either of those things are, but we're halfway between them.
It's when you could put an egg on your head and it won't roll off or something.
Yeah, so
one of the solstices.
So later Christians adapted the celebration into Candlemas Day. So it's like Christmas, but Candlemas Day.
Yeah.
Which also fell on February 2nd. On Candlemas, clergy would bless candles and distribute them to ward off the darkness of winter. So this is basically where people start to lose their minds with the cold and they're desperate for something.
That's right.
That's what this day really is. So then the Germans, their folklore included the belief that if a hedgehog or badger saw its shadow on February 2nd, winter would last 6 more weeks. And then German settlers brought this tradition to Pennsylvania. So it started with either a badger or a hedgehog. Somehow I wonder if there weren't badgers or hedgehogs.
Rid of the badger, because every time you take it out of the hole, it would chew your face off. So good.
Are badgers that aggressive?
Oh man, yeah, they are. They're killers.
Oh, I didn't know that. I know like Wolverines.
Oh, yeah,
they're probably related to Wolverines because those are intense.
A Wolverine, a badger. Why do you think Michigan and Wisconsin took them as
establishing
their mascot?
dominance? Here it says, since hedgehogs were not native to North America, settlers turned to the groundhog, also known as the woodchuck. It's so sad. The B team, also known as a woodchuck. You know, how much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? So the first official Groundhog Day was celebrated in 1887 in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, thanks to a local newspaper editor and a group known as the Punxsutawney Groundhog Club. I think people just got bored. Like this it's truly just like spring fever. People were desperate for some type of sign that
for an activity.
Things would become over. So now the famous groundhog, Punxsutawney, I hope I'm saying this right, Punxsutawney Phil became the central figure of the event. And so now today it is still a thing, Groundhog Day.
It's a big deal.
And it's just lighthearted. And it says...
You know why it's a big deal? It's because we keep having kids. Kids perpetuate it. If you're in school, stuck indoor recess, this is a big deal. You want to know how quickly am I going to be able to get outside and play. So
I even feel it.
The desire of the children to be set free is what perpetuates Groundhog.
Yeah. Do you want to guess how accurate it is? Like the percentage?
Oh, I bet it's under 50%. No, I'd say 50. It's got to be 50%.
It's 40% success rate. So it's more symbolic than scientifically accurate. But yeah, so that is the history of Groundhog Day. I didn't know I've always been confused by this day and what it meant. But I remember as a kid thinking like it was actually scientifically accurate. Like this meant something.
You were led to believe that.
I was.
So why, I know it's for fun, but I try to ruin everything and make it unfun. What would be the right animal to truly tell us that winter is about over? What animal is there that would be a better prognosticator of winter is about to end? I would suggest a bear.
That's what I thought too, but you can't pull a bear out of a cage.
Well, you can once. You can pull a bear out.
You only attend that event once.
Yeah, the attendance will start out big, but the attendance is going to go down over the years. How come nobody's going? Well, they've all been mauled. None of them can actually attend anymore, and then people would stop going. But a bear, I think, would know. What are some other animals that really depend on snow melting? Well, anything that eats vegetation. What's that called?
Yeah.
A herbivore.
Yeah. I think like birds.
Herbivores.
Like when I see birds, I'm like, there's hope.
The robin.
Yeah, the robin.
Now that's a real thing. When robins show up,
in Illinois, that was like, okay.
That's
and
right.
probably even here, because I haven't seen a bird other than like a crow or a hawk in a while. If I see a robin and I know they're starting to build their nest and, I'm like, okay, spring is coming or is very close.
That's a good one. So yeah, let's say bears are probably they should be number one. We do see the problem with that. They better have the medics nearby, because when that bear gets woken up, it's not going to be pretty. Robins are a good one. You could have those.
What about, an iguana?
Well,
if they don't fall out of the tree, spring is coming.
That's right. As soon as they stop falling from trees, then you know that it is near, that 100 degrees is near. So, yeah, and iguanas would be the one south, especially in our little peninsula down here in Florida. Yeah. So I think way out west, by where our former guest Troy was, snakes. Right? Don't they? They would become more active.
Well, yeah, because they're cold-blooded.
Right. So amphibians would be good. Get an alligator out there. See if that alligator reacts differently. Let us know how much time before summer's here. Yeah, that could go bad too. I wouldn't do that.
So in Europe, they believe that certain animals like hedgehogs or badgers like had an instinct for predicting weather patterns. Okay. And they always emerged like right around this time anyway. So that's why they picked it. And for the symbolism, it says the groundhog is seen as a humble, earthy creature, which became a symbol of the relationship between humans and nature.
Groundhogs. I've always thought groundhogs have good hearts, that they're just very warm and welcoming. That's wonderful.
Yes. So
that's why I try not to hit them on the road. If they're on the road, I'll avoid a good woodchuck. Because I'm like, that's a friend.
Yes. You've never heard of a groundhog attacking anybody?
No. Very seldom. Very seldom.
Yeah.
So
maybe it was a good choice.
Good groundhog talk.
After all. But he now I'm forgetting if he did. I'm pretty sure he saw a shadow. Yes, he saw his shadow today.
Okay.
So 6 more weeks of winter.
6 weeks of winter.
But someone forgot to tell Athens, Georgia. But
he's wrong 60% of the time. So there's a pretty good chance that it's going to warm up.
I'm hoping good old Phil is wrong. And, maybe if he's wrong again and his percentage drops, maybe we can make our case for the bear. It would be more interesting.
Yeah. It would sure be a must-see TV. I bet people are screaming, you haven't mentioned Groundhog Day. So the movie Groundhog Day. That was filmed in Rockford, our hometown.
It was?
Our hometown. Yep. They used the quarry. So our house was near Rock Cut State Park.
Yeah.
There was a quarry across Mulford from our house.
The Nymphs quarry.
Nymphs quarry. When he jumps the car off, he takes a car into a quarry. That's Nymphs quarry. That part was filmed in Rockford. The rest of it was filmed in Dixon, Illinois.
I have never seen this movie.
We're pretty famous.
Isn't it? Is it just about like the same day happens over and over again or something?
Yeah, but it is Groundhog Day, and he keeps waking up every day is Groundhog Day. Ned Ryerson, he ends up punching him in the mouth. It's terrific. It's pretty good. Pretty good movie.
Yeah.
So
maybe I'll need to watch that.
Groundhog Day. So good. Now everybody was screaming for us to comment.
Yeah, sorry. I had nothing.
Well, the bespeckled me is ready to say goodbye. I'm not going to lie. I've spent a little bit of extra time staring at myself,
Oh,
trying to evaluate.
bespectacled.
Oh, what did
You
I
said
say?
bespeckled.
Bespeckled?
I'm like, why are you
I'm
speckled?
spotted and I'm wearing glasses. Yeah, I decided to get spots. No, yeah, bespectacled me. And I'm not going to lie. I've spent a little extra time looking at myself in my computer
You
monitor,
should.
evaluating
You should.
the quality of my eyewear. I like them, and they help me see, and they stick to my face.
That's good.
That's the best part. So, but that part of me is saying goodbye, Alex. It was again great talking to you on episode 11. We did some paint talk, which is really exciting, and lots of groundhog talk, which I don't know. I don't think many people are going to cover that material. So that you and I did.
I think we have a monopoly on that area of podcast topics. So.
Oh, wait. We're always looking for sponsors. Haven't heard back from Subaru, by the way.
Yeah, they're kind of icing us out.
We talk about painting, and I don't mention the best.
You should make a little plug. Maybe they'll reach out to us.
So here's the plug. Two names in the paint world. Two names are better than one. So anything with two names is good. Top of the list, Benjamin Moore.
Mm-hmm.
If not, just for the smell. The smell of Benjamin Moore is the best. Second, a little lower. The only reason it's a little lower is because my favorite store, Nicholson's in Rockford, sells Benjamin Moore exclusively. But Sherwin-Williams is also a very quality paint.
We would still, even though they're a little lower, we would still accept a sponsorship.
Absolutely.
We love you.
We'll take a Sherman. Your smell isn't as good, but your paint quality is good. And then there are some single names that are, you have Bear, Glidden, and I'm not rating these at all. I'm just saying two names, Benjamin Moore, Sherwin-Williams. Two names are better than one.
Okay.
You're going to pay for it, but paying a little extra for good quality paint is vital, in my opinion.
All right, good to know.
So Benjamin Moore, definitely. I mean, I would wear it. I'd look like a NASCAR driver if you guys would sponsor us. I'd wear it everywhere. But Sherwin-Williams, you guys are quality too, so I appreciate you. So thanks for thinking about considering maybe sponsoring our podcast. Mm-hmm. All right. Okay, Alex, I got my plug in there. Someday it's going to land.
Yes,
we're going to get
one of these days. I mean, hey, viewership is up. The next natural step is sponsorship.
Our analytics are on fire.
They are. They are.
So you can help that, subscribe and share and do all those things so that people can catch
Our
on.
average age is probably like 9 and 10-year-olds because of my students, but still.
Not a problem.
We take it.
You need to tell me that. I have age appropriate jokes.
Okay.
I got some good
ones. We can think about that in the future.
I'd like to share.
Next week will be our Valentine's episode, our first ever Valentine's episode. I'm excited. We're going to have 2 special guests that we both love dearly. So that will be very fun. I'm looking forward to that one. But yeah, until then.
All right. Have a great week, everyone. Go paint something. All right. Bye-bye.